Good morning, everyone. It's your average Jen here. Let's see if we can get something transferred over to YouTube. How does that sound? It's a bit noisy in my background as there's construction down the road. So let's get to this. If I can share my screen. Today we're going to be hearing from Ty. And if you haven't heard his story, go back to the episode Ty the Rebel, and you'll learn more about Ty. He is my half brother. I didn't grow up knowing much about him. So when I started doing this podcast, I was able to learn a little bit more about him and what he's had to go through in his life. So let me bring this up, and then I'm going to apologize because I'm going to sit here and eat my breakfast, but I'll try not to be a pig about it. All right, cat, you got to get away.
Hi there, and welcome to I'm Only Human, a podcast that attempts to explain how to coexist with other humans. This podcast is going to dive into topics like: is it possible to overcome human nature? Are rules and laws necessary for taming bad behaviors, or are they simply a control mechanism crafted by other disturbed minds? Why do we fight with each other? How does traditional religion impact us? Can social disease be healed through individual recovery? My name is Jen, and I'm an average human. Before I begin, I would like to state that I will be talking about controversial things such as, but not limited to, religion, God, the Bible, 12-step programs, and politics. I am not an expert, and I don't claim to be one. I will, however, be referencing Alcoholics Anonymous because it is the granddaddy of all other 12-step programs. I will also be quoting things from the Bible and mentioning God along with different religions. I'm not trying to promote a particular program, nor am I trying to convert anyone. I believe religion gives us a foundation, and 12-step recovery guides people down a path to self-actualization. Through recovery, healing is possible. I believe that changed minds and attitudes can change our world.
Okay, greetings everyone. Today I have Ty with us, and he's going to talk about something that affects him personally, which is disability. So feel free to talk.
All right, I'm Ty, and I would like to talk. I love it, of course. There's the garbage trucks. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We can wait a few minutes till they pass.
So, disability and how it affects me. When I first became paralyzed in 2010, I didn't know anything about spinal cord injuries or the types of surgeons and medical care that would be needed, not just for the surgery itself for the injury, but for aftercare and your well-being. And I pushed really hard when I injured myself because I thought that unless I was up walking around and mobile again on my limbs, that I was no longer a man. And that really, now looking back at that, I feel that's absolutely ridiculous. Being a man has absolutely nothing to do really with anything other than the genitalia, in my opinion. But I really struggled interpersonally trying to get back so much mobility. And I think part of it is the providers also are at fault because they pushed me so hard to get back up. They're like, you're so young, you've got all this upper body strength. There's no reason we can't get you on a prosthetic, and got me all hyped up. And the reality is, when you have a spinal cord injury, it is different for everybody. It is a unique injury. There are similarities maybe across the board. Generally speaking, you may have certain symptoms or whatever, But the providers were telling me that I needed to basically get out there and get back up and get back on the horse. So I exhaustively went to physical therapy, trying to regain that level of mobility that everybody kept telling me I should have and was possible. And really, ultimately, what happened as a result of that is I took the parts of my body that were perfectly fine and I damaged them in the pursuit of trying to be, a superhuman, more or less, trying to defy the odds, if you will. I was told I would never walk again. And pretty much anybody who's been told that, I'm sure has this conversation with themselves that, well, that's what they say, but, it's not entirely up to them telling me I can or I can't. And originally I didn't have much function. I did have a lot of pain and sensation, which they said was a good thing because it meant that there was still possibility of regaining some function below the waist in my limbs and whatnot. And it did slowly start to come back to an extent, but it will never be what it was before I was injured. So when I was trying to do the prosthetics, I exhausted myself trying to gain something that was gone, and that was the way I used to be mobile. That was gone after I broke my back, and furthermore after my amputation. And I have been using crutches, started in therapy like in late 2011. So I've been using crutches nearly every day to some extent the last 12 years, basically. And crutches are not designed to be used long term. They are something that you're given for a short-term recovery, where you need to be off a limb or whatever. But that was my primary way of getting around when I didn't have accessibility with a wheelchair. After I broke my back, I had to climb up the stairs, one step at a time, lift each leg up the steps, drag myself into the bathroom, drag myself up over into the shower, into a shower chair, because I didn't have an accessible bathroom on the first floor. And I guess never really having a total accessible situation since my injury has actually maybe helped me as much as it's hurt me, because it's kept me more mobile. It's cost me, but I feel like if I had just always been in a chair and just never tried to get up and ambulate, that I'd probably be in a nursing home right now, or maybe dead, because of the complications from pressure sores and sitting down. So I do have a level of mobility that I have gained back that does allow me to ambulate. But again, that's come at the expense of destroying my hands, my shoulders, and also my knee. I just went to the doctor recently, and the doctors said, well, your knee is not the worst I've seen, but it is not the knee of a 38-year-old man. He said it's damaged. It's basically at the point where it could use a replacement, but I'm going to keep having to do injections as long as humanly possible, just because of the complications I could be looking at as a result of doing a potential knee replacement on that. And it gets complicated when you're in a chair, because if they paid for a chair, well, why do we need to do a knee replacement? And it's just, the healthcare system is not necessarily designed to help people with disabilities, in my personal experience. And that kind of gets me into sort of another subject of the whole disability thing is I get disability benefits because of my injury. And it is more than not having having any income, but it's not enough to actually support yourself. So I have tried literally for years to find work in various different positions that I felt comfortable doing or I felt I was able to do. And it has come to the point where the disability is a huge hurdle in obtaining employment. And part of that is because I'm not able to do a lot of the things that somebody who can ambulate without any assistive devices is able to do. You know, I'm not going to be stooping and bending or standing or lifting 50-pound boxes. So I feel like it's been extremely isolating and frustrating because without additional income, it's hard to ever rise above, if you will. Like, I feel like the disability allows you to be at this like entry level where it's just enough to survive, but it's not enough to really live. And in the event that you're able to find work, then that starts a whole new process of complications, because now you've got to figure out health insurance situation, because before that you were getting health coverage through public assistance and stuff like that. And now that you're employed, you need to start paying into that. And then that changes the coverage. It changes everything is what I'm saying. So it's almost been more frustrating and complicated as a person with a disability trying to move ahead and kind of just get back to living a norm than certainly the average person I feel deals with. And I say that because I feel like I used to be an average human before all this happened.
So can I interrupt you for a minute and ask what kinds of jobs, being disabled, are you qualified to do, just so that people out there know? 'Cause it's not hard to do computer work. What do you have to move around for that? But what other types of things are you capable of doing that people may not think you're capable of doing?
Well, I mean, in my previous life, as I call it, you know, I was an auto mechanic. I did building and grounds maintenance. I was a service writer. So all of those jobs require an ability to ambulate. You know, I have a certificate in general residential carpentry. Well, that's great. That's really great. But without an ability to ambulate up and down ladders and get around on job sites that are 99% of the time going to be not accessible, especially during a construction, it's been hard. So there's those skills. You know, I have a lot of janitorial and hospitality experience, like in kitchens, dishwashing, and commercial laundry stuff. Again, this is all stuff that I know how to do, but that skill set isn't helpful if I'm not able to totally utilize my body in the way that I used to.
Is there a way that the world could adapt to make it so that people who are disabled who have these skills are able to do like real jobs?
I mean, there are people out there with disabilities who have real jobs, if you will. It's just a matter of finding the resources. It's a matter of finding those types of employers that are hiring, you know, and then it's also the copious amounts of paperwork and stuff that are required when you're on Social Security for reporting your income and stuff like that. I'm a guy who's hands-on. I mean, I learn doing things, actually physically doing them, watching somebody do it, and then I can repeat that process. It's really hard for me to do computerized stuff. One, because of the extreme carpal tunnel in my hands. It's extremely hard for me to type on a keyboard. And yes, there are other ways like dictation and stuff like that. But even just after a while, clicking a mouse and stuff like that starts to get to the point where my wrist and my hand are irritated from it. So I feel like my disability has kind of isolated me in that I'm not able, or I haven't been able to, like, just go out there and feel like I'm making a huge difference. I take pride in the work that I do. So not having a job is a huge kind of hit to my self-esteem, if you will. I have started volunteering with a nonprofit organization that gives out clothing for free in the Milwaukee area. And that has been rewarding. I feel like I make a difference there. You know, I work hard. People talk highly of me. So it's not that I don't have an ability to do different things, because I do. Unfortunately, I feel like, again, I just recently applied for a position as an overnight stalker at a grocery store. And on that application, they ask about your criminal history, you know, and you're required to tell them your criminal history. And if you don't, you know, if you lie about it, and they might hire you and then get a background check back and then fire you for lying about it. Or what tends to happen is they'll get these background checks back and you'll never hear from them because you have a criminal history and you have a disability. So I feel like my disability is always scapegoated by the fact that many of the employers ask about your criminal history, which, quite frankly, in my opinion, is irrelevant now in my life. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we regret. And we were all young and dumb. And I'm certainly no exception to that rule. And there were consequences for doing things like that. So I have definitely changed the person that I am as a result of my injury, even though it has been extremely difficult to live with my injury. You can't detach yourself from yourself. So whether I want to deal with it or I don't, I have to. You know, I can't hop out of bed and run to the bathroom anymore. You know, there's a process for that now. I can't take a 5-minute shower. You know, there's a process for that now. So being disabled doesn't necessarily bar you from doing things that you used to do. It definitely makes them more interesting and more complicated in that you have to find different ways to accomplish what other people are doing without even having to think about it. I never used to think about grabbing something off a shelf that was out of sitting reach because, well, I was standing and I simply grabbed it. When you're walking down a sidewalk, you don't think, man, that crack might really interfere with somebody in a wheelchair. You simply stand over it and you go about your day. So there is going to be limitations when you are faced with a disability like mine that has you in a chair, you know, for getting around any length of time. Not everything is designed for people in chairs. In fact, the world is not designed for people in wheelchairs. You just don't think about a lot of the things when you're disabled, or should I say when you are not disabled, that a person with a disability deals with, like having a conversation with somebody. Let's just say I didn't have an advanced power chair like I do. Because at one time I didn't. I had a regular manual chair. So I'm sitting in the manual chair and my whole world is basically stuck all day long looking up at the world. And then when I was on my crutches, it was spent looking down at directly what was in front of me. So it's a little bit exhausting. I don't feel like I use my disability, like take advantage of it or sit around and feel sorry for myself. When it first happened, of course I did. And I think everybody goes through this kind of grieving process of losing the person that you were, because that was a loss. I mean, that was sort of like a death in a way. And you have to kind of completely figure out how to do everything in a different way, or nearly everything. Anything that requires a person to be upright.
I imagine
would
it's
that
a
be-
lot of anger and frustration when you're learning how to do all this stuff, when you're learning how to cope with it. Were you angry at the world?
I definitely was mad at the world, and I absolutely hated myself. I hated myself before my injury, and I hated myself even more after my injury because I did it to myself. You know, it was my own drunken stupidity that had me doing things, that had me in a place that I had no business being in when I was drinking. And that also goes into, you know, the alcohol abuse and addiction and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm kind of spiraling on your statement.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I was mad at the world because the world didn't adjust to me. You know, the world didn't. Suddenly, it was like the world wasn't going to change to meet my needs, so I had to change to meet my own needs. Suddenly, you find places that you may have frequented. You're no longer able to go there, you know, and I would get mad at businesses suddenly that weren't accessible. And it's like, how dare you not be accessible? And again, the world is not designed for everybody to be in a chair. That being said, I think the ADA has done a lot of work for people with disabilities, and when it comes to like public infrastructure, when they're rebuilding things need to be of a certain width. They need to be done a certain way that allows ease of entry and exit onto and off of, you know, sidewalks and stuff like that. I probably was 3, maybe 4 years into my injury before I started to let go of that anger. And I started to let go of that anger because it wasn't benefiting me. Rolling around with the chip on my shoulder wasn't making me a better person. And I started realizing, you know, it doesn't need to be good or bad or right or wrong. It just simply is. And it took me a long time to get there. And when I got there, it was pretty humbling because that anger and frustration with the disability kind of faded. You're always going to have situations that come up as a disabled person that are inconvenient, injuries or whatever. Life happens, you know, and life keeps going even after your life changes drastically. You know, it was like my world turned upside down, but the rest of the world kept ticking away. You know, so that was kind of a reality check, and it's humbling in a way to have to ask for help now. That was really hard for me at first. I thought I need to do everything on my own. Let me lift this 200-pound thing and figure out how to do that with my crutches and manual chairs. And it was, you know, it just, yeah, let's just say I spent a lot of time in self-defeat mode. There's a lot of trial and error. There is no manual for what to do when you find yourself in a situation. You just have to figure it out. And a lot of that just comes with time and making mistakes. And those mistakes are usually painful. And in my case, I say that because it usually involves an injury where you've fallen or you've crashed or you had the dog hooked up to your manual chair and she was going after a rabbit and you crashed out really hard in your chair.
Ooh, ouch.
And yeah, there was many of those, you know, but it's kind of like, do you become afraid of the fear of the unknown, or do you just live your life, you know? And I think I'm starting to finally be in recovery and be in a position where I'm living life the best that I can with what I have to work with, and understanding that I have limitations that average people might not have. biggest thing is myself. I think all of us are our own biggest challenge. And, sometimes getting out of our way is the hardest thing to do, but it's the best thing for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think nobody wants to admit that they're wrong or they screwed up or the things that they're doing is contributing to the way that they're feeling about themselves. And I'm glad that you discovered finally that you're your own problem. I discovered I'm my own problem. Like when I'm in a bad mood and stuff, it's like, well, what am I doing? Why am I in a bad mood? Because the world didn't change. It was my perspective. Something inside me was either off or whatever the case may be.
Right. And I think with my injury, it has allowed me to I've had to slow down. I used to run around 100 miles a minute, and part of me thinks the universe was sending me a very harsh message to slow down.
Well played, universe. Well played.
Right. Yep. Yeah. You silly goose. But overall, now I feel like I try to do the best I can with what I have. I try to be as helpful as I can to other people. The place that I volunteer at, I bust my butt. I'm there 6 hours a day sometimes, and by the end of the day, I put miles on my chair just in that building, moving around. So, I've learned to work with my disability and ask for help. That's the hardest thing. And sometimes you just have to be humble when people offer you help when you really don't want or need it. Those people who are like overly helpful, and it's kind of like sometimes a little bit emasculating to just like people assume, well, because they're in this situation, they need this certain amenity or this certain whatever, this I need to hold the door open for you or whatever because you can't do it, and it's like I've done it for people too, and it's like sometimes people are super grateful and sometimes people are all mad at you. And I get it now because sometimes it's like, I'm perfectly capable of grabbing the door. Thank you. I'll see you soon. But it's just, I think people's nature to kind of naturally want to try to help people who aren't helplessly lost in their brain and voting for people who shouldn't be running the country. Oh, sorry, squirrel.
Well, I like even for able-bodied people when others are courteous and they hold the door, it's kind of awkward, like with that timing. Like if you're far away or something, then someone's awkwardly standing there holding the door, and I just feel weird about that too.
There's been a lot of those times, especially I notice it a lot more when I'm on my crutches because I'm not as fast as I am in my chair.
I should just start yelling, no, that's okay. I'll get it when I get there or something.
Right. Yeah. There definitely have been those awkward moments where it's like, okay, that's an excessively long time that it's going to take me because it's icy and I don't want to slip and fall, But again, it's like I've had to take time and stop and say, well, I don't believe this person was intentionally trying to be a jerk or belittle me in some way by, offering that. And sometimes you get the good humor with it too. Like one time I was at Walgreens about to walk in, and this older gentleman says, "Oh, hang on, let me hold the door for you." And we both start cracking up because all the doors at Walgreens are automatic, and nobody needs to hold them open. So there is that. Having a disability, especially because I'm missing a limb, a leg, I'm kind of a curiosity to younger people, like kids. They're curious. So I'll roll by or I'll walk by and I'll hear little whispers from the kid, mommy, daddy, and then usually you'll hear the parent scolding the child, which I disagree with because it's simply a child asking questions and being curious. But yeah, it's taken me some time to just not care what the world thinks about my appearance or how I may come off to other people. based on being in a chair or missing a limb. I guess I can say I'm a recovering people pleaser. And when I stopped trying to please everybody, life just got easier. And it wasn't that I was just being selfish. It was I stopped caring about the little tiny things that just didn't matter. Kind of going more with the flow.
Yeah,
So,
you just touched on something about parents kind of scolding their kids for being kids and asking questions. And now that my oldest is grown up and my others they're getting older, I feel bad, and I feel bad for kids because they're scolded for just being human. And they're just trying to be like us, and we taught them to be that way, and now it's like, no, you can't do what I do, and it's just wrong.
right. Yeah.
I mean, I understand people need rules, people need guidelines, but you can't punish someone for being a human. They don't know any better.
Right. And I totally agree with that. And I mean, there have been times I have gone as far as to actually, I feel like, correct the parent in that situation and be like, the kid, your child didn't do anything wrong. It's simply a curiosity. It was a question. It's something they don't understand. And being human, we want answers to things, even little humans.
Right.
But
Kids need to be
honestly,
validated too, because kids end up being people and we forget kids are just smaller people.
Right. They're just little people. They have feelings and thoughts and all that too. And kind of getting off the subject, but what you're talking about is I really saw it with a friend of mine's kid, like with the birth of his son, and then immediately picking up on the negative behaviors of the larger humans and then being scolded for it. I think we all start off perfect just the way we were. And it's people that actually ruin us. Well, people have ruined everything. Who am I kidding? Or nearly everything. I don't have kids, so I guess it's easy for me to sit and say one thing or another because I'm not actually having that experience personally. But having grown up with a very physically and verbally abusive father, I believe that there are better ways to handle things. But it is also one of those subjects where it's like, how do you discipline a kid now that is super hyperactive and won't listen to redirection? And I guess I'm kind of thinking of myself right now as a child. And it's like, I feel like there was a point in time where dad tried to be different and do the timeouts and, okay, why are we on timeout? Kind of work through that. And that didn't work because 2 seconds later I was back doing the exact same thing. So yeah, I don't know.
Did you have control over the things you were doing when you were like that? Or was it like a compulsion thing? Like you just had to be doing something?
Well, I think it was really the ADD and the ADHD working overtime because I was constantly bouncing around like a ping pong ball and I was never focused on anything for more than 10 minutes. So yeah, I was definitely one of those kids that was super hyperactive. And I think that I needed medications that I didn't have. That being said, as you get older, I believe, you have to own and take responsibility for the things you continue to do. When you know better, do better is sort of the motto that I've kind of been working with as of recent.
Is there anything else you want to talk about or mention about disability, kids, anything at all on your mind?
Really at the moment, my mind's actually kind of blank.
Oh, okay.
Which is nice because there's usually just a lot of ramblings going on up there.
Yeah, same with mine. And since I've started getting my thoughts out, and I don't publish everything that I record, it's just good to get the thoughts out sometimes.
Right. And I think that's a great way to do it because I used to journal and I have trouble committing to that because I feel like it's this whole process I need to go through. And it's like, well, how hard is it to just hit record and just talk, to the microphone when nobody's around.
Usually the minute the microphone's on, it's like, oh, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to talk about. Because like in the moment when I want to share the things I want to share, I can't because it's usually at work and I'm triggered by what's going on there. And it's like I got all these awesome things to say. And then when I'm by myself, it's like that energy is gone because I don't have the people around me. Like, I guess we need other people.
I guess we do. I've had a really hard time accepting it myself. And I've had to really kind of see people differently too. Because I get to a point where I have anxiety and enough is enough. I have trouble being around a lot of noise, a lot of stimulation, a lot of people doing silly things. Yeah. Then I want to just kind of shut down, and that isn't helpful either. So being around other humans, I think, is very helpful for our well-being.
And you got a project going on right now too. Are you doing your bathroom in your house?
Yeah, me and my mom are in the process of doing the bathroom. Really, the whole entire house.
And then how does that work with your disability? Are you able to like actually do those things? Because I saw like the shower or something what were you doing with that tile on the wall, or was that pre-tile, or what was that?
No, that was actual individual tile that got glued up on the wall with grout or with mortar.
But that's stuff you're able to do with your disability. You're able to put those up there.
I have been able to, like the beginning, you start at the bottom, and for that I was sitting on the floor. Then I worked up to sitting on a footstool. Then I worked up to just having to stand, and it's exhausting for me to do that. Extremely exhausting, because I have to set the crutches aside and basically be supported on the leg that I have that is not very strong or stable, and then try to balance while it's been tricky. It's been tough. But when the project started, I needed to get up into the attic to do electrical work. There was no way to get up there besides taking a ladder and crawling up into the little access hole in the kitchen. So I literally, when we started gutting the old bathroom, I built a staircase that went all the way up into the attic so that I could scooch up into the attic to do the electrical stuff. And then later I installed reinforced the structure up in the attic and put in a winch. So I've got a harness that I can put on and just lift myself up to the attic with the winch now to get up there anytime that I need to do anything. So having the disability has made the bathroom project, we're going on a year now. It's made it slow and tedious. And there's things like the ceiling. I can't do that. I can't get that high without my standing chair. So anything that's basically above my standing reach has basically been my mom's had to do that, and it's been a struggle for both of us to get as far as we have, and getting towards the finish line now. I would say it's definitely been a learning experience. It's been really expensive. It was supposed to be a $5,000 bathroom overhaul, and we're into this project for probably, and I have to include all the electrical I did in the house. I had to rewire the whole house because the electrical was old cloth wire.
Okay.
And it was basically shorting out in places, and so that was an experience because I had to cut holes in all the walls, where to run new wire and access the old stuff. So I'm really active, but I have limitations, and if it were not for having help, project would have pretty much been impossible to complete. But for two people doing what we can, I think we've done amazing, considering what we had to work with. Nothing was square, nothing was even, nothing was level. It was really bad. So we ended up, having to put new flooring, new structure in the ceiling, restructure walls, closets, everything.
Yeah, the only reason I bring it up is because of people who might be listening in the future to know that you accomplished all this even with your disability, and you have knowledge, and you're able to figure things out, and you're able to come up with ways to do the things you need to do. And a lot of disabled people, they come up with ways. They're not useless to society the way society thinks that they are.
Yeah, there has been times I definitely feel sort of like a castaway, an outsider, but there's also a tremendous amount of stuff that people with disabilities can do. Essentially, I have gotten to the point where there isn't a whole lot I can't do that I did before. That being said, I may have to do it differently, and it's usually a lot slower. Things take forever, and that is frustrating. So you have to literally become a patient person or drive yourself insane. So I chose to just become a lot more patient because I've already got the insanity thing going. But having a disability, I encourage anybody with a disability to take risks, that are healthy for you to, get out of your comfort zone. I definitely have done that. Try new things, maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe you find that you're really good at something. I still find a way to do mechanical stuff. Like right now I've got a tractor in my garage, a lawn tractor that I've been rebuilding because, guy bought the world's worst lawn tractor. That'd be me. You just have to learn to adapt to what you're doing. And I feel like technology has come a long way in helping people with individuals do that, whether it's a piece of hardware or a piece of software that allows you to be more independent and more able to do, activities of daily living or being able to get out in the world and socialize and work and stuff like that. I'm not one of those people who can sit at a desk and work for 8 hours. It would just the thought of that is giving me, no, I'm not that guy.
Just the thought is depressing, I'm sure.
It is, let me just, especially working from home too, doing like a remote job. It's like, okay, so you're constantly home. Then when you're not working, you're still at home working on your house. So yeah, I don't know, all in due time, but a lot of it's just trial and error.
Okay, sounds good. Is there anything else, or you wanted to add?
I think that completes my thoughts for the moment.
That depletes it all. Okay, sounds good. In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly of my own making, or by my guests. Take what you like and leave the rest. You may come to realize that you may not like me or what I want to share. Let's talk to each other, reason things out, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the fellowship of ethical human behavior and the serenity from positive human interaction help you grow and chill out, one experience at a time. I would like to thank my higher power for guiding me through this podcast. I hope to spread the message of love, hope, and understanding by touching one life at a time. If you like this podcast, please like and share it. Comments also help other struggling people find it. I am now listener supported, and if you would like to contribute, please feel free. There is no obligation. If you would like to share feedback, you can email me at averagehumanbeing1875@gmail.com. There is also a link you can click if you'd like to send a voice message and add to the content of the show.
Okay, well, there you have it. Ooh, what's this one going to be? Ooh, Cosmic Revolution is next. That'll be exciting. Let me stop sharing this. Okay, so there you have it. That was some more from Ty and what it is like the transition from being an able-bodied person to being disabled, and all the emotions and stuff that he went through, the loss, the grief, and finally the acceptance of the situation. And I think that's about all that I wanted to say on this. Join me again next time, where I'm going to introduce a new story strain, Comet Cosmic Revolution. Bye-bye.